so much for joining us here on Illuminations Radio. We have a fantastic show for you this evening. Two very bright, shining stars in this transitional time that we're living in. We have Janet and Stuart Swardlow. Oh, I know you all are excited. I see that the chat room is full. I see the phone lines are filling up. We're all really excited about this evening. And this is a special show that's a two-part show. We're going to be doing a long 2-hour show. And so we've got so much information that's going to be jam-packed into this show, but it's going to be really exciting and quite enlightening for everyone. And so before we begin and we introduce our guests, I, of course, have to thank the sponsors. And that is Tam's Healthy Kitchen. As you all know, that's my baby. That's what I'm doing, helping people to know that, no, you don't have to take what they give you as so-called food and pretty packages and all of that. The idea behind Tam's Healthy Kitchen is to help us to take control of our own nutrition, take control of the foods that we're eating, and develop a reconnection with the food that we're eating. We actually create things that are closer to nature, to their natural state. So I want you to just go to tamshealthykitchen.com and check me out there. And now that's out of the way. Gosh, I don't have my drummer isn't here tonight, so we will do without the drum roll, please. So I'm just going to go ahead and welcome our illustrious guests here. Thank you so much for joining us, Janet and Stuart. Welcome to Illuminations.
Well, thank you. We're so thrilled to be here.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Well, you all have a fascinating history, and since this is your first time with us here in Illuminations, I just love for you all to take turns and share your background. Share what led you on this path of wanting to inspire others and help us free ourselves from whether it's general mind control or specific mind control, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But please, help us know who you are.
Well, I'll just start by saying that I was part of the Montauk Project from 1970 to 1983, and I was taken into that event because of my family background of my great uncle being the first president of the Soviet Union and loyalties of my family, of course, being questioned by the American government. And so because of that experience and the work that all of us in that area were forced to do, when I came out of that, I became dedicated to undoing the mind control and programming and helping people to identify their true selves and to express themselves and remove all the extra artificial mind control that they have been subjected to, and that's globally. And our work is about opening up the 90% of the brain that is not used and the 97% of the DNA that is not being used. So it's a very large work.
And I guess for myself, I was always involved in metaphysics. I was born consciously connected to my Oversoul, and I was very fortunate to be in a household where that was encouraged and taught. And so I have interesting background as far as my DNA. I have Cherokee Indian in there. I have Celtic DNA. I have the Magdalene frequency based on the Waldensians, which not a lot of people know about, but they are very instrumental in the Reformation back in the 1600s, 1500s. And so anyway, there's just lots of interesting things going on. I was never shut down. I always say I have a lot of issues, a lot of questions, a lot of things to explore, and because of that, I just naturally seem to share what I know with other people, and one thing led to another, and people liked what I said. They asked me to write books. They asked me to give lectures, and that's kind of how I got off and running.
Wonderful. So how did the two of you meet? I mean, you've brought this powerful information together in a bond of marriage here.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting story, which I actually wrote about in one of my books, Montauk Alien Connection. And just to make it extremely short for the show, a friend of mine had a mother who read one of Janet's articles and told me that it would be very interesting for me to speak to her because we were very much alike, and of course both Janet and I were married.
Uh-oh. Perhaps someone needs to turn their volume down on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anyway, so I called Janet, and we were both married to other people at that time, but we were both in the process of separating from those partners. And Janet was, of course, near you in the West Coast, Oregon, and I was on the East Coast. And so from that phone call, one thing led to another, and here we are.
Wow. Powerful union here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I definitely want to get into that Montauk experimentation. There's so many things out there. We hear about the Montauk, the monster. We hear about the psychic experiments with children and so on and so forth. If you could, just fill us in on your experiences there.
Well, I was there, of course, for 13 years. It extrapolated from the very beginning, where I was used basically as a guinea pig for mind control and genetic experimentation, and then it progressed to time travel experimentation, DNA work, even psychic warfare, interdimensional travel, even esoteric weapons that were being devised at the time for the purpose of creating software mentally that could be downloaded into a computer, amplified, and then transmitted either to a specific location or globally, depending on what the powers that be wanted at that moment. It was a very brutal experience. There was abuse of all kind. There was mask memories placed on. There was torture used. You name it, it happened there. It shut down in August of 1983, and since then it's come back into use, but more towards weather manipulation and other types of atmospheric testing, not so much mind control anymore.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And you, as a child, you had psychic abilities that were natural for you, yes?
Yes, I was always open that way. In fact, I remember as a child, I used to see dead people, and I thought that other people could see them too, and they would talk to me. I also had, even way before the Montauk Project, abduction experiences, which I now know many of those were actually government, not alien. And so my abilities were opened up from very, very beginning.
Powerful. And so you just touched on something there. You talked about how many of the abductions were actually government and not alien.
Right.
Are there two types of abductions? Would some be alien and some would be the government? Or explain, please.
That's a very good question, and I will answer that by saying the majority of what's happened, let's say, in the last 40 years or so, has been done by the government. And when I say the government, it's not just the U.S. government. It is the global government. They do not recognize any borders. But yes, there are also literally alien abductions, but there's also interdimensional abductions or events that need to be looked at. It's quite a complicated situation because you can't just say it's a blanket thing. It can be many different things.
Very, very interesting. And you also talked about the some mask or some artificial memories that were placed.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a movie out now that's called The Fourth Kind.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Well, I only see movies if they're on an airplane. That's the only time I get to see them.
Oh, you travel so very much. But they speak about the a false memory that's placed in of an owl.
That's one kind, and sometimes it's an owl, sometimes it's a squirrel or a rabbit. Generally, with little children, they use mask memories of animal figures or something that would be acceptable to a child. But very often, if you do deprogramming work or some other type of, let's say, self-hypnosis where you go into the mind and look at the memory itself, many people report that what they believed were aliens literally were human beings disguised as aliens, or it was military operation that occurred and a masked memory of an alien abduction was placed over the original memory. So again, it's one of those things where there's not a general statement that can be made. Each individual event needs to be looked at separately. But I will say that the majority is based from beings on this planet and not from elsewhere.
Very, very interesting. And you mentioned interdimensional. Now, of course, many of us, we've been trained here to think quite linearly. So we think past, present, and future, but interdimensionally, that's something.
Well, that is being talked about now, even on news services like CNN, Fox, AOL. Especially now they've mentioned the reopening of the CERN Hadron Collider in Switzerland, which has a lot to do with interdimensional work. The Montauk Project had to do with going interdimensionally as well. And so we have to realize that we live in what they call a multiverse, not a universe, because there are many alternate realities all occupying the same God mind, and it's just a question of which vibratory rate you're tuned into in order for you to perceive a particular reality. So in effect, there are infinite realities, and they can connect to one another, and we can have communication and interaction with them.
Very interesting. And so that would take me to certainly another question that I'll bring up later. We'll be kind of talking about past lives and so on. But I would like to take this mind control programming a bit further. I know that you mentioned in your writings, I'm just loving your books here. You're speaking in The Healer's Handbook, A Journey into Hyperspace, where you speak to the fact that everyone is generally programmed, but some are specifically programmed. Could you go into that?
Yes, and now that we're in the 21st century, it's the end of 2009, almost 2010, we are in a situation where all 6.8 billion people on the Earth are programmed, and that has happened now with the use of cell towers, satellites that completely surround the Earth. Even television and radio can send out transmissions for mind control, and believe it or not, even the electrical system in your home can have carrier waves that have the mind control and programming in them. Years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it had to be where the person was physically taken to a location for programming sessions. But since the advent of certain technologies, now programming is across the board, everyone on the Earth. Now, depending on the genetics, people can be either generally programmed, which is the imprinting that the satellites and the cell towers transmit, but there are certain people, about 5 to 10% of the population at this point, who have specific programming, meaning their genetics and mind pattern allow for much deeper layers and levels of mind control and programming to take hold, so that they have very specific functions and very detailed DNA input that allows them to be extraordinarily separated from the rest of the population because of the way they are programmed.
Very interesting. Can you give an example of an individual? I mean, a lot of times I think about these lone nutter shooters like the Columbine. Yeah. Would that be an example?
Yeah, but you know what? They're not lone nutters. The media would like you to believe that, but they're part of the vigilante and assassin programming mind control, and they are specifically programmed to activate and perform that particular function. See? And we're seeing that all over the place now. These people that shoot people in malls, or the Fort Hood shooter was absolutely specifically programmed. That's different than, Joe Smith out there who just is programmed to go to work every day, not pay attention to what people are telling him, and focusing only on what his job is and not ask any questions, to be a good little robot. That's what the general population is programmed to do. Believe what the media tells you, go along with whatever you're asked to do, take the flu shot, vote for so-and-so for president, just be a good little robot.
Very interesting. Well, of course, that takes my mind to the movie They Live, where the two characters, the main characters, put on these certain sunglasses, and then they could see all of the mind control around.
Yes, well,
wow.
Unfortunately, with Montauk, my brain became those sunglasses, and now I can see those things all of the time.
Now, in your experience there, you're saying that your brain became that, so you became open to seeing it, and you were also given the tasks of seeking information, like archetypes and all. Could you share that with us, please?
Yes, when the mind is opened and more of the brain is used and the more the DNA is used, there are other functions that the human being or human species has that is more of the God-mind functions. And God-mind operates in a triad: color, tone, and archetype symbols, which is what creates everything in existence. If you know how to put those together in a hyperspace sentence, in a DNA sentence, you can create anything in existence. And part of the Montauk Project was to go into that hyperspace location or zone of existence, understand and learn what those symbols and colors mean, and bring them back and put them into formulation and use. In my book, Healer's Handbook, I have an archetype dictionary in there, which is, in my opinion, the most comprehensive that exists so far. Of course, there cannot ever be a complete archetype dictionary because it would be infinite. There's no way you could possibly get every archetype in existence because every thought has a symbol. And so you'd have to, go on and on forever with it. And so I use that archetype dictionary as a foundation for people, and I tell them in the book to use it and continue on with their own work and get their own archetypes and add to it.
Well, I find it really fascinating because I'm looking at it right now. Those are symbols that are quite universal, as far as we are here on the planet. I mean, when you look at it, you do pick up what the meaning is. That's very interesting.
Yes.
So all of us are subconsciously programmed or would be able to read these, I assume.
Subconsciously, or I should say superconsciously, in your right brain, you know what those mean because they're part of your existence. Only because our experience in physical reality, where the left brain is dominant and the logical mind is, we're told to keep that as the processor, so we kind of detach from the understanding of it. So what happens is the pineal gland, which is at the center of the head and acts as a liaison between the left and right hemispheres of the brain, the pineal gland puts pictograms over the archetypes and strings them together and creates picture images, which we sometimes perceive as a dream, but in our waking life we perceive it as physical reality.
Yes, that's powerful. And you also have a really great section, a dream dictionary in there that's very, very wonderful.
Yeah, I have to expand on that one, though.
Oh, you do? Okay, well, I'm ready for you to expand.
Well, what I meant is it's certainly not complete, and there's so many more symbols I could put in there.
Right. Yes, I understand. Well, I'm ready for the update whenever you do that.
We did recently add a small dream dictionary on our site, so that we have that for people as well. And also in the back of in the back of True Reality of Sexuality, we also have a dream dictionary.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, I would love to. I know that you have several publications. You have the 13 Cube. You have True Reality of Sexuality, as you mentioned. You have True Blood, Blue Blood.
Say that 10 times fast.
Oh, I don't think I could. But I'm really fascinated with a lot of the information about our creation and how we actually got here, and what that has to do with off-planetary intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Well, I did write about that in my Blue Blood, True Blood book. And in fact, I'm in the process right now of creating a 3-volume work of complete history of the Earth, and even including the solar system. But this planet, and I'm sure that's what you're basically referring to, this planet was a huge experiment. No life is original to this planet. It was either brought here or created here. The world as we know it is not the way it was in ancient times or in the beginning. In fact, our planet was really covered totally in liquid and water and occupied the second location from the sun. And it's a very long story, which I wrote about in Blue Blood, but this solar system was used as a colony for refugees from the Lyrian star system. Reptilians found the colonies and attacked them. They drove an ice comet into our solar system to destroy the colonies. And make a long story short, the ice comet destroyed a large planet between Mars and Jupiter, which created the asteroid belt which exists now. It ripped the atmosphere off of Mars, and then eventually pushed the Earth into the third position from the sun, and then the ice comet took up the second position. The ice melted because of the heat from the sun and created the cloud cover over what became the planet Venus. So actually, Venus is the remnant of the ice comet that was sent here as a weapon.
Uh-huh.
And then that same reptilian group drove an artificial satellite into our solar system to colonize the Earth after it became inhabitable by being pushed into the third position and the oceans polarizing and creating land masses. And of course that satellite we know as the moon. It is an artificial object. It's hollow. And they colonized one of the larger continents on the Earth, which was called Lemuria, and that was an androgynous reptilian race. And then it was many, many thousands of years later that other human refugees and colonists came and occupied another portion of the Earth, and that's when all the battles began, because reptilian and mammalian species really should not be living in the same environment. And of course, it was quite a destruction, and eventually the reptilians were pushed underground and the humans took over the surface, and then other refugee groups of human nature and not human nature came here and started manipulating the genetics.
Very, very interesting. And so this takes us to a lot of what Zecharia Sitchin brings out in his work. Very, very powerful. And that asteroid belt, now from what a lot of talk is going on out there is that Neberu is on its way back, and all of this about the asteroid belt in 2012. What do we need to be focusing on?
May I talk about what you just said?
Please do.
Well, in April of 2003, Neberu was destroyed, so it's not coming back.
Ah.
So that's literally a dead issue. And the 2012 thing is a mind control / programming ploy by the New World Order in order to create fear and anxiety so they can increase the programming. Nothing is going to happen in 2012 except that the Illuminati agenda for complete control of the Earth will have occurred. That is what it's about. It has nothing to do with the Mayan calendar whatsoever.
Uh-huh. Well, thank you for clarifying that. So everybody, you can exhale.
Yes. You know, a Mayan elder said that, the Mayans actually think that the 2012 predictions are very humorous because they know the Mayan calendar does not say that. And he said that on December 22nd, 2012, he will be getting up and making his coffee in the morning and going on with his life.
All right. So our concern, or what we probably need to be watchful for, is this New World Order.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that we can do? I mean, most of us are programmed to some extent, and many of us are specifically programmed. How can we create this critical mass to keep our liberties, our freedom?
Well, it really has to be via each individual. And the battle needs to take place within the mind, not externally.
Yes.
We need to do our deprogramming work, release work, growing up the child within. We need to learn and use Oversoul techniques, basically to go back to what we were supposed to be before all of the artificial programming took hold of us. And that's what Janet and I teach, to basically go within the mind, remove what should not be there, and to open up what should be there and identify the true self and express that instead of the imposed artificial self that the programming has installed.
Yes, indeed. And so, Janet?
Yes.
Yes. Where would we begin? What would be one of the first processes that we could do to free ourselves from this mind control?
Well, one of the first basic things is just very simple color therapy, and that is if you can visualize, and we tell people if you can daydream, you can visualize yourself in a violet bubble with a mirror on the outside, because ELF cannot penetrate the frequency of violet, and on top of that, once it hits that mirror, it's going to bounce back and away from you. So it's very simple. You use your mind. It's free. There's no charge to it. Anybody can do it.
Wonderful. So violet. And violet is, there are several different shades. We think of lavender. We think about purple. How would you describe lavender so we get the right shade?
Well, first of all, violet is violet. It's not lavender. And purple is purple, and they all have their different meanings. Violet is an amethyst color. If you have anyone out there has a stone that's an amethyst or piece of jewelry with that can be a visual aid. And in the back of the Healer's Handbook, there is a color chart where I purposely had violet and purple next to each other so that you could see the difference. And as Janet mentioned, violet has a filtering and protection energy. People should learn the various protection techniques that we have in our books and use them 24/7 to block out all the energies that are being bombarded on the earth right now.
And we have a very simple book called Hyperspace Helper, which is really the companion book to the Healer's Handbook that you have. And in that book is a very simple exercises that anybody can follow and use. And that book is available on our site, expansions.com. It's called Hyperspace Helper. I think it's $15. But it has just some good basic techniques that people can do using the color, using tone, using archetype to make tremendous changes in their life. And it's really very easy once people get started. And what's really fascinating is that people usually find results very quickly. And even as you said yourself, by reading the books, it's starting to fill in some of the holes for you. And that's really what we've done between the two of us, and what we have explored within ourselves and what we offer other people is just taking what's already out there, giving it a different little twist or spin so that people can easily have tools that can help them take control of their mind, protect their body, improve their health, improve finances, relationships, all those things that are really important to people, deepen their own personal connection to their Oversoul and God mind. It's really simple once you kind of get started on the right path.
Right. And I imagine, just like any other practice, it is something that you must be diligent with and practice daily in order for it to be
what I tell
effective.
people is when you're a little kid, you don't really even know how to walk. And so it takes a lot of practice when you're a little kid to learn how to stand up on balance on your legs. And yes, that's practice. And now you've done that for so long, you don't think about what it's like to walk and stand up on your legs. You just do it. It's the same thing with these techniques that we're teaching. It's really a redirection of the mind pattern, a refocus, so that you can create a different world from what you've done before unconsciously. Now with a little bit of conscious direction, you can choose your own path, you can create it, you can walk it, and you can be whatever you want.
Powerful. Well, if you've just tuned in, we're speaking with Janet and Stuart Swardlow of Expansions.com. And if you have a question, I know you all have questions, please call in at 347-838-9577. Again, that's 347-838-9577. And so this is a powerful gift that you're offering. So imagine that these are some of the tools that you two help to heal yourselves.
Oh, absolutely. And we work on ourselves 24/7. We're the biggest cases out there.
Well, actually, she says I'm the biggest case that's out there.
But, we both have lots of things that happened to us that we needed explaining. And, we both are interested in what's out there on this earth, inside the earth, out in outer space, so to speak, the multi-universe. We both have very questioning, creative minds, and so we're always exploring inside of ourselves and around ourselves. So these are the things we came up with that aid us, and we're just putting them out there. Hey, if you can use it, or you can take these and create even better tools, go for it. Let's all work together.
Yes, well, you certainly give us all of the tools, whether it's the colors and and another thing that's just so exciting to me is the vibration of names and numbers. There's a use of mapping name frequencies along with the colors, so that you're able to kind of hook into the vibrational frequency of yourself or an individual that you want to help heal. Can you share that with us?
A lot of people don't realize that they choose their own name. And so we found through a lot of our work, people are renaming themselves as they go along because they say they don't like the names their parents gave them, or maybe they don't care for their parents, so they want to get away from that parent. But basically everybody chooses their own name, or they choose their own frequency, and that name is really just a sound full of color and archetype that expresses that particular frequency that they came in on. So we do in one of our services, and we also teach it in the Healer's Handbook that you have, about how people can take their name and understand what the archetypes mean and understand more about what they came in with. So instead of running away from who and what you are, you run to it and learn from it and surpass what you came in to learn.
Very, very powerful. I know that there's a lot of misconceptions about what a soulmate is. If you could clear that up for us, please.
Well, there's different categories that we talk about. Soulmate being kind of a lower level, and then there's twin souls, and then twin flames, as far as getting into degrees. And I like to use the analogy of trees, because people can put that in their minds. They can see that imagery in their minds. And a soulmate is basically another personality or group of personalities that travel through time and space together, incarnating generally at the same time, kind of like a stand of trees that you would find in the forest that are growing together, and they're always close together. Then, getting a little more energetically close is twin souls, which would be two personalities that come from the same Oversoul, and that would be like a tree with two branches growing out of it, or actually trunks growing out of the same root system. Okay, that would be like twin souls. And then twin flames, which is the closest energy, where it's almost like you are, two bodies but one soul. That's how close you are. That's like going onto a branch and seeing the branches split off of each other from on the same tree. So I use those analogies so people can get in their mind the concept of the different levels of energy and what that means. Because the term soulmate is used so much across the board, and it really is not what people think it is. Your friend can be your soulmate, or your neighbor can be your soulmate if you're familiar with them for a long period of time.
And in a way, that term is distractive for people, because now that they have a term, they forget to look deeper, and that they stop at soulmate. They don't go further in, and they don't explore the energy. They just say, hey, I want my soulmate, and they don't exactly know what that means. They think they do, but they don't.
Right. And then further, even that, we talk about a walk-in.
Which I hate to disappoint your listeners, but there's really no such thing as that. And, a walk-in, the general New Age idea is, before I was born, I made an agreement with so-and-so that when I turn 30, I'll leave my body, and then you can jump in and take over and be a different personality in there. Well, that's kind of like a carjacking. And if and if you understand how the body is created, and I have to give you a flow chart, because everything is mind pattern, and mind pattern is electromagnetic in nature, and it can be measured. As electromagnetic energy enters into physical reality, it attracts atomic structure around the patterns of the electromagnetic energy to create protein bases, which then become the foundation of your DNA, which is the blueprint for your body. So literally, what your mind pattern is what you become physically. Now, that means your physical body is created specifically for and tailored for you and your mind pattern. So another personality cannot use it, because that would be, Tamara, like I came into your home in Seattle and said, you're not going to go wear your clothes today. I would destroy them by although it might look nicer on me than you, I don't know. But the thing is, I have a strange sense of humor. But the thing is, the soul personality tailors the body for itself. Nothing else can use it for any period of time. So a walk-in, two things that it really is. Number one, psychologically, a cop-out. I don't want to be me anymore, so I'll be someone else and take a Tibetan name, and I'll say I'm an advanced soul, okay? I'm leaving my life, I don't like it anymore. That's a cop-out to me. Another version of a walk-in is the mind control programming. An alter personality within the programming matrix comes forward from within the same mind and just animates the body, but it's the same personality, just a different compartment or alter of that personality. So the theory of another energy coming in is not correct.
I see. So you're talking about compartmentalized personalities in one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is really the same personality but fractured into a different alter. And of course, the worst version is the psychological problem where the person just doesn't want to, I don't want to have those debts anymore. I'm tired of being with my family, so I'm going to change my name, change my personality, make believe I'm somebody else, and say I'm a walk-in.
And we've seen that a lot, where people literally leave their homes, they leave their family, they leave their debt, they're somebody else, and they have assumed a whole new identity, and they're gone.
Yeah. Now try to tell that to a credit card company. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the person who had the body before me.
Interesting. We have a funny response in the chat room. It says, I'd like someone who's rich to walk in and then leave the money for me to enjoy.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. Well,
and Tamara, the other thing is, what does the New Age say about it? Say, well, this is this very great, entity that's so brilliant and smart that it doesn't want to waste time being born all over again, just wants an adult body. Well, if it's so brilliant and powerful, why does it need a body?
That's an excellent question.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Which leads me to, this is a very deep one, but I contemplate it a great deal very often, is why the heck do we have a body? How did we get to this place? What is a soul? And all of this rebirthing and experiencing, and have we fallen, or is it just part of our growth and development as soul?
You know, I think a lot of the questions that you're asking are really good ones because those are out there these days, and I think maybe, you know, we maybe should just go back a step and talk about the New Age itself. Because
please, let's do that.
Yeah, people have a lot of questions, you know, and of course conventional religion is really about mind control. And so if most people are brought up that way and they want to leave it and they start thinking, well, once they start thinking on their own, then the Illuminati comes up with some answers for them. And one of the answers was the New Age. So there are all these terminologies and, you know, things, to distract people. So as soon as you have a question, there's a distraction for you, and they never really get to the core of the matter. So all these, like the walk-ins and some of these other things that you're talking about, it's real easy to go here and there and everywhere because it's new things to explore. It's like new food for the mind. And that has been a distraction. And the thing that Stuart and I do is we teach people to release the need for distractions, to go inside, to hook up, to get your own answers. And when you see or hear these things that are out there, it's how to discern truth from disinformation. So a lot of that, I think, is really important for people to understand that the New Age itself was a program to distract people from going inside.
Yes.
And the New Age was created by the U.S. government in 1965 as a precursor or a foundation for the New World religion, which is being installed as we speak.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that would have anything to do with this green movement, do you think?
Oh, it's all part of that, absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just like there's no global warming. In fact, I just read an article online that said, you know, climatologists are baffled why there's no more global warming. What happened to it? Well, hello, it never existed. You know, that was all a scam.
Very, very interesting. Ooh. Oh, it looks like we have a caller with a question. They have their hand raised. As I said earlier, anyone who wants to call in and ask a question, you can call in at 347-838-9577 and push 1 if you'd like to ask a question or comment at any time. So we'll go to the switchboard for our caller in the 787 area code. Caller, welcome to Illuminations. Do you have a question or comment?
Yes, I do. This is Sky calling from Puerto Rico. And thanks for letting me know about the call. This is totally up my alley. I am definitely in line with what he is talking about, well, what the couple is talking about, actually. And actually, I didn't hear her name, but the wife mentioned about what religion is. I'm sorry. And I kind of feel, and this is kind of like a comment/question, but I kind of feel like most of the world is like lost because of this so-called, all of these religions. And I have always been intuitive my whole life. I've always been visionary. I've always gotten messages my whole, like as far back as I can remember. I never really knew what it was until someone told me that I was. And it's kind of like on a day-to-day basis, I kind of struggle with folks who want to push and indoctrinate their life with their philosophy, which to me is so like microscopic to what the universe really is. And so I guess the question is, like, what do you really say to people, or how do you really move through this reality with, to me, like a multitudinous amount of people who are just completely off. They're just completely wrong, in my personal opinion. I just think they're just all wrong. And how do you move through this reality knowing that and feeling that genuinely, and then being able to really communicate with them without being an outcast?
That's really that's a good question, and it's a common question. And I always tell people to know your audience, because what happens is, as you grow and change, as you said yourself, you're finding out really more about who you are and that you're okay, and you may not be as different from these people as what you think. But you have to know your audience, and as you put up to what I would call your Oversoul to bring you in a support system that you can talk about these things on a deeper level, and these other people, you have to understand that's where they are. They cannot come to your level, therefore you must go to their level without judging or criticizing them and understanding that's what they need. And then go ahead and move on and develop a new support system so that you have people that you can talk to on a deeper level. So you cross many cultures, many lines, many levels of development, and it's all okay because God mind allows everything.
And if I can add something here, and that is, when you try to convince somebody of a belief, you're already lost. It has to come from that person, and all you could do is tell people what you know, and then they have to accept or reject it as they see fit. You never should try to impose your belief system on others. And also remember, whomever you attract into your life is somehow reflecting you. So if you find a difficulty with the belief system of the other person, then you need to ask yourself, what about my own belief system that perhaps I'm questioning within myself? And so that person's reflecting that for me.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful question and comment, sharing, Sky. And we're going to move on to our next caller in the 303 area code. Caller, welcome to Illuminations. Question or comment?
Hi, thank you. I just have a comment and a quick question.
Yes.
You mentioned the name analysis in the Hyperspace or Healer's Handbook, yeah. Well, I actually did that for my teacher, and it was interesting. It came back with 2 turquoise colors, and also mentioned that she was experienced in healing, and then she told me she has Cherokee Indian DNA, which the turquoise opens up, and she's a massage therapist. So
that was very interesting.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that, and ask about animals, why they might wink at you. I mean, that happens to a friend of mine and myself a lot. And I just love what you teach about animals, even reflecting back personality traits and stuff. So.
Well, I know that animals and even insects are quite intelligent, and if they winked at you, that means that they had some kind of a feeling towards you. Of course, look at the symbolism of what type of an animal it is, and what that particular animal means to you as a symbology. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I even have fish tanks in my home. And, fish are supposed to have these little tiny brains, and they're not supposed to be intelligent. But I tell you, when I walk past that, they recognize me, and they come to the glass to look at me, and I can even tell that they're wanting food and asking for it, and they know that I provide that for them. So that does show somewhat of an intelligence and recognition, which they're not supposed to have. All creatures, no matter what they are, have intelligence from God mind, and they are literally part of ourselves.
We have a couple of really great DVDs. One is called Non-Human Communication, and one is called Non-Human Chakra and Energy Systems. And in this, we do everything from minerals and water and wind all the way up to aliens and extraterrestrials. So, and of course, in that mix is animals, insects, plants. We talk about a lot of interesting topics, how it reflects you, what it has to do with the planet, and so forth.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was a great question, too. That makes me think about totems, animal totems that a lot of the Native Americans and those in Alaska focus on. Very powerful.
We do also talk about animal frequencies and how that reflects on what we do. For instance, in our True Reality of Sexuality, we talk about wolf frequency and how that has to do with family. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things that are going on out there that especially if you want to talk about the indigenous people that have been laughed and scoffed at by the quote-unquote the white man, but those people know exactly what they're doing, and there's more truth in that than conventional religion. But you have to study it, you have to get into the frequency, you have to understand what it means, and you have to know how to use it correctly. And unfortunately, we do not really have people who teach us how to utilize spirituality or connectedness with all that is correctly. We have conventional religion that leads you one way, but it's taken away from the knowledge that exists in front of us. Again, it's a distraction. So we think that we look to the church for answers because that's what we're told. And if you've been indoctrinated in that since birth, you don't know any different. You forget that you can look within, and then you hear what some of these things are about, for instance, the wolf frequency and how you could use that to connect to it and protect your family, and it sounds so strange. It sounds very strange. But as you explore it and understand it, it makes perfect sense. But you have to utilize it, and you have to kind of get out of the conventional thinking and understand what that is so you can move into woo and what you really are.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to disagree with you on something. Janet, you said that we don't have anybody to teach us. Well, we have you two.